Hello everybody, PGA teaching professional Todd Cole, Director of Instruction for US Golf TV, the Sanford Power Golf Academy, and I'm here with my good friend Sam. Sam, we are ready for another one of our live videos here, and on behalf of Sanford, on behalf of US Golf TV, we want to thank you for taking some time to join us today. And Sam's got some really good stuff planned for us today. We're going to be talking about with course management. So hopefully everybody out there is doing well. We're using these times to really kind of share our passion for golf. Share what we're doing here, and hopefully help you get you away from kind of the seriousness that's going on in the world. We've talked a lot about that. Hopefully also you're being safe out there, you're taking care of yourself, and you're listening to what the healthcare experts are telling us to do so we can get beyond this. And the golf season is coming, and we're going to be ready. Sam, any kind of opening words for our friends here before we dive into this?
Yeah, I think we got some really good information today, and even if you take away one thing, it's going to help you shoot lower scores if you're able to play tomorrow. So one thing we want to do, we want to hear who's out there today, who's going to be interacting. Tell us where you're from.
Yeah.
That kind of gives us a good idea, and we want this to be engaging. Ask a lot of questions on different topics. Course strategy, management is something that I think a lot of people are trying to find more information, Todd. Wouldn't you think so?
I would agree. I mean, like Sam said, we're going to have a lot of fun today because we got some good topics. And people think course management. I hear that all the time when people are like, geez, I didn't have good course management. Or I hear a lot from parents that watch a lot of junior golf. Oh, my son or daughter, just they don't have good course management. And I got to be honest, as a coach, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to teach at times. But we see a lot about strategy in other sports, in football and basketball. But in golf, it's a huge thing. And what Sam has put together here, the kind of these three common things, or these three things we're going to talk about, are going to really be helpful. But as he said earlier, we want to hear where you're from. We want to who's the furthest away and who's still watching this. We got our interns, Josh and Justin, are here, so we appreciate their help. We got our main man, Nick, behind the camera, doing a great job. And so we also, like Sam said, we want this to be interactive. So if you got questions, be sure to fire them out. So I think we want to dive right into it. We got some people out there who want to learn. So we're going to go ahead and slide over here, and we're going to have Sam kind of jump into some of the first things we're going to talk about in terms of course management.
Perfect. Thanks, Todd. So just to kind of tee this up, again, it's a very broad topic, course management. So today we're going to kind of dissect, first off, some strategies to really get into it. And I think at the end we can ask some questions that are just kind of, general or just random questions you have. So first off, golf, you have different skills, right, Todd? You learn how to chip, you can learn how to putt. We think that along with the mental game, course strategy is a skill. And just as important, it's a discipline. So the first one that we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to have Justin go ahead and go to the first slide here. We're going to talk about approach shot strategy. So behind us, you're going to kind of see some visuals that are very powerful today. Be able to kind of understand these strategies. So first off, who knows what hole this is? What golf course is this? Maybe put it in the comment box. What hole is it? What golf course? And also maybe what bridge is that off to the left over there? Let's see what we get for comments. So as we go through here, maybe we'll follow up on that. So we know that approach shots and par threes are a big part of golf. So what we have here is we're going to talk about a very important stat or a statistic. We're going to break down some expectations, but most important, what are the pros doing, Todd, that a lot of times we overlook? And that's hitting the fat side of the green.
And I think, when people think of the fat side of the green, I think where we want to start here a little bit is what do we mean by that? Like when somebody says you got to hit it to the fat part of the green, or because the middle of the green maybe isn't the fat. I mean, they're kind of the same, but they're a little bit different. So let's talk a little bit about what actually does it mean. What is the fat side of the green? What does that mean?
So if you look up here, we can see this golfer. So we have Rory McIlroy. Wherever you tee up, let's say it's a par 3 and you're teeing it up here on 12, okay? You're going to put a line, imaginary line from where you tee it up all the way through where the pin is. So an imaginary line. So you can see this dotted line.
Maybe this dotted line right here, Sam?
That is correct.
We're looking at right here, okay.
So this looks like a Sunday pin to me, Todd.
Yeah.
And as you can see, the dotted line is going through the flag. So as you see that, you're going to see two sides. You see the green box was obviously a larger part of the green, and you're going to see the red box on the right. So for lack of a better term, we use fatter or larger. Okay, what side is larger? It's going to be the left side. And in this situation, the right side is the smaller. So again, very common sense, but when you actually put this into your strategy, Todd, this is really going to make a difference as far as hitting more greens, making more pars, and the best players absolutely do this strategy.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of things that come with understanding. First of all, that would be a great question to ask yourself, as Sam just told us, where is the fat side of the green? Because that kind of determines a lot of your strategy. Because if you don't know that, you're gonna start to wonder, okay, where do I even start with my strategy? And so I know we're gonna talk a little bit about why is that helpful, but I think even just in terms of, you know, we talked a lot about the last couple times when we doing these videos. I don't know how many of you were out there and caught us on our first night. We talked to Andy, we talked about having a process and a routine and kind of the why behind what you're doing. I mean, just having this as part of your natural routine, I think can give you a sense of calm because you're giving yourself a nice margin for error.
Great point, Todd. I think for us to kind of understand this, first we have to have some expectations. So I'm going to have Justin actually go to the next slide here, and it's going to break down some pretty important information. So again, approach shots, par threes, think of it kind of in the same thing today. So a couple statistics that we had here, Todd. From a 150 to 175, the average proximity from the hole is 27.6 feet. So
These are tour professionals.
Correct. This is tour
Okay.
professionals. So an average score from a par 3 on the PGA Tour is 2.99.
Right here.
And GIR, that's short for greens in regulation. So again, a round approach shot, 70%. So think about those numbers for a second, whether you think they're right where they should be, maybe they're higher or lower, or you thought the pros were putting it closer. I'll tell you one thing, Todd, I would think that the pros would maybe be hitting it closer than 27.6 feet.
And this ties in a little bit to like what we were talking about yesterday in terms of when we went through some of the putting stuff and the expectations. So part of what we want to be doing here is of course teaching you technique, but also is helping you understand like what is normal. Because if you understand what is normal, if there is such a thing right now in the world, I don't know what normal is right now.
I don't either.
It's kind of a crazy time, right? But then you can manage your level of expectation. So when you hit a shot, a tour pro from 150 to 175 yards, and it finishes roughly 27 feet from the cup, I mean, I see a lot of players who are not tour pros who are frustrated with that. But if you understand that, I think it also, as Sam's going to talk a little bit about here, helps you understand where you should be picking targets and things like that. So when we're talking about course strategy, people just think in terms of, laying up or these types of targets, but understanding also expectations can kind of help you navigate around the golf course.
Absolutely. So I'm going to kind of piggyback off what Todd said there. Just having expectations. We put up an LPGA Tour example as well. You can see the stats there. So from 150 to 175, the average is 39.5 feet. So if we go back another 25 yards, which a lot of times 175 could be a par 3 that we play, 54.3 feet. So sometimes I like to use an LPGA Tour example because sometimes the people on the tour, I mean, we can't relate to how far they hit it, how good they are. And again, the LPGA are phenomenal golfers, but sometimes as far as how far they hit it, it's a better representation and we can kind of relate to it, Todd.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so understanding, what's the average, I think the other thing that really stuck out to me right here is just as greens in regulation. I mean, 70%. I mean, I honestly, when you first went through that, I'm thinking it was going to be definitely higher than that. So a couple things come to mind. One is it shows the importance of short game.
Yes.
I mean, from 150 to 175 yards, you're only getting 7 out of 10, which means, you're missing the green 3 times. You better have a good solid short game. So I'd be curious out there if you got any questions on that, fire the questions in the comments or different things that you're wondering about. Maybe what would be good things for high school. What do you think? We got a lot of high school and weekend golfers. What would you guess that their range is there?
Yeah, from that 150 to 175, again, that's based off of the best players in the world. So if you're putting it from 175 to anything inside 40 feet, at the high school level, if you're shooting between, 75 to 85, that's a great shot. And I think that, again, is going to allow you to feel comfortable. Pars are good. On par 3s, there's kind of this misconception, Todd, that par 3s are the easiest hole on the golf course. When actually you look at some of these scoring averages on par 3s, they're well above the par average. And we're actually going to look at a study here on the next slide that's going to show you're going to be able to see where you kind of fall within the skill level of your handicap. You're going to really see what the average is for your scoring.
Yeah, so before we move on to the next slide, I would wrap this up from my standpoint. If here's what I would want you to remember. Number one is understand the expectations. And I would say for almost all of my students, other than the professionals, if your ball is 150 yards or further away from the cup, you probably want to be aiming to the fat side of the green, which Coach Sam is going to teach us more about here, but literally in the middle of the green.
Correct.
Very seldom, if you're 175 yards out, you're going to be aiming at the pin. Because if you do, as Sam's going to show us, you're going to be asking for trouble. So I think those are some really good takeaways. Understanding the expectation, how that fits into your scope of the game, can lead you into making the right decisions in terms of course management.
Great point, Todd. So we can go to the next slide here. And this is a pros versus Joe's kind of study that they took a bunch of different people.
Am I the pro?
You're the pro. In this case, I'm the Joe. So you can see on the bottom, if you can't see it, it's kind of breaking down into different categories. We have a PJ Tour leader, which their average score is 2.72.
This is on par threes.
Par threes.
Okay, 2.72,
If
okay.
we go to the tour average, it's 2.99. So just barely under what par is, right? Par three. If we get, I put a red box around 1 to 5. There's some really good golfers that are probably listening. 1 to 5 handicap from 150 to 175. Average scoring is 3.54. So think about that for a second, what that means. That means on average, there might be a couple holes that you're actually bogeying on average for a really, really good golfer, Todd. If you go all the way over to 11 to 15 handicap, which is a very large group of golfers out there, the scoring average from 150 to 175, 3.93. So we're almost to a stroke almost over average of par 3. So what is that really telling us, Todd? Like if a golfer's out there, what should their expectations be on a par 3 from what the stats we're seeing here?
Well, this was my favorite slide. When Sam put this presentation together, this was by far my favorite slide because it worked right into my wheelhouse as we work a lot with development of young players, junior players, even college players, and even your weekend golfers. Those things is there's this mindset that in order to be a great player, I have to make a ton of birdies. Because that's what we see on TV. That's what we see on the Golf Channel. That's what we see on ESPN. We're surrounded in a world where we're bombarded with highlights. The dunk, the three-point shot. But having watched a lot of golf, and what I can tell you is that generally, especially in junior golf and amateur golf, which wins tournaments, is consistency. Pars.
Yes.
You can win a lot of tournaments, a lot of junior golf tournaments, high school tournaments, even some college tournaments by making a lot of pars. And this right here, the slide that Sam showed, speaks exactly to that. I mean, a 1 to 5 handicap is a good golfer.
Very good golfer.
I mean, that is a good, they're shooting in the 70s. And if you make a par on a par 3, you're picking up half a shot. And so I think just once again, going back to that, you kind of get at a reoccurring theme that I'm going to here, that mentality of understanding, hey, if I make a par on a par 3, I'm picking up shots on the field, and you keep moving forward, you're going to be in a good spot.
Perfect. Justin, if you can go to the next slide real quick, we'll show. This is just a different distance. You can see how exponentially the numbers go up. So now we're 170 to 200, Todd. 1 to 5 handicap, that same category, they jumped up to 3.63 average. And for the 11 to 15, 4.05. So we can go to the next slide here. We're going to start to get in how to actually implement this strategy. So once now that we know this, again, these are some common things I hear, Todd, all the time. Just based off of maybe their strategy and what they say is dictating really the outcome. So I hear this all the time. I need to go at the pin to make a good score. That's one thing I hear. If I don't put it within 20 feet, like we said, I hit a poor shot. These are just some of the common things we hear as instructors and golfers, and hear it from all different levels, whether you're within that skill level or maybe you're a little bit higher. So the next slide here, we're going to talk, again, getting a little bit more into what we have here. So Justin, if you could switch the slide. So like we discussed, first understanding how to actually break down this strategy and understanding what the fat side of the green. So if we're talking left to right, in this situation, we know the pin's on the way right side, Todd. So the biggest thing that we need to understand is we cannot miss right. We cannot make sure that we're missing right. We have to, if you see a lot of the guys, they'll aim for the middle of the screen, okay? And over the middle is actually going to be in the middle of this bunker. So who remembers the Masters last year when Tiger Woods won? What was the main changing pivotal point? Number 12, wasn't it?
Number 12 was a big hole in that tournament.
So who remembers where a lot of those golfers were going? They're going short right.
Yeah.
And a lot of Finau, Molinari, even Brooks Koepka, regardless of whether they got the ball to the hole, they were ending up on the right side. Where did Tiger go? Tiger took a little more club. As he always says, he puts it to the middle of the green. Tiger was most definitely aiming over the right edge of this bunker, because again, the strategy of just aiming and your discipline to hit the fat side of the green is very important with this strategy. A lot of times people will try to hit the fat side, but they'll start to kind of creep over closer and closer and try to hit at the pin. So it is a skill, Todd, to really work on hitting the fat side of the green. Again, the fat side of the green is going to be anything over here. If we miss on this side of our dispersion pattern, we're potentially looking at bringing in a bogey, even double bogey for some of those guys on Sunday last year.
So would it be fair to say that if somebody actually, with this strategy, Coach, if somebody hits it and the ball finishes right by the pin, 4 feet to the right of the pin, that they probably pushed it, or?
Yeah, they actually got pretty lucky, you know, especially on this specific hole. Todd brings up a great point. You see a lot of shots that are ending up really close. A lot of times those guys are getting lucky. If they actually executed this strategy, they might actually be 20 feet left of the pin. So if we go to the next slide here, you're going to see that we have another example. You hit different balls. Some people fade it, some people draw it.
This is for the fade, this is for somebody who generally fades it or slices it?
This is for a fade. So you can kind of see where this strategy was a failure just based off of not following the hidden and fat side of the green. So if we go to the next slide, this would be an example. Again, we don't know for sure, it's just an example, but if Rory again aimed anywhere in the fat side of the green and his normal ball flight's a draw, he's executing that shot. Even if he, like Todd said, if he misses a little bit in his dispersion pattern, he might end up right on the pin, but I guarantee you inside, Rory's saying, hey, I got pretty lucky.
You bet.
But his strategy allows for some of that air or that luck, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of golfers don't see that the good players are actually doing. Sometimes they're like, they didn't hit a great shot, they actually put it 20 feet, and that's exactly what they're trying to do.
So if he hits a perfect shot, then we're going to dive into a speed round of some questions right here. We're going to get on the next slide. But if he hits his perfect shot, then what you're saying, Coach, is that his ball is going to, in essence, finish right in the middle of that box.
Yes.
Okay, and which is going to be, quite a ways away from the hole. But he's using his strategy to do that.
Yes, he is. And so with that, if we go to the next slide, we can kind of see again the same thing with the fade. So again, we're thinking fat side of the green right now. The visual or the illustration is showing left to right. If we go to the next slide, we're actually going to see a golf hole here that everyone's probably familiar with. If anybody can guess what this green is and where it's at, would be a very good start to kind of talking about this. Fat side of the green doesn't have to be left to right. It actually can be front to back. So sometimes thinking about where that pin is front to back in a more complex way is also for a better golfer. In this situation, okay, disregard where the pin is. This line, okay, we're showing the fat side and the skinny side. What side would we want to hit the ball on? If we don't want to bring in the water in this bunker into play, I'm going to try to land the ball a little bit shorter into this fat side of the green, which would be the front edge of the green.
I think something just to dive even a little bit deeper into that, if we think about most greens, now this isn't the case with every green, but most of the greens that we play, the greens kind of slope from back to front. So the back side of the green is higher and the front side of the green is lower, generally speaking.
Yes.
Because they're built that way to receive shots. And so if your balls are typically pin high or a little bit shorter, you're going to end up with the vast more majority of putts that are uphill. Versus if you're hitting past the pin, okay, as Coach Sam's telling you there a little bit, if you're past the pin, okay, then you're going to have a lot of downhill putts. So it's not only in terms of strategy of keeping the ball out of trouble in terms of hazards and things like that, but you're leaving yourself easier second shots or putts or whatever the situation might be, I think would really be good. All right, so I know we got a bunch of other information, but we want to get the viewers involved a little bit. So did we have anybody from crazy far places, guys, that we heard from?
We had, let's see here, we had New Jersey, we had New Mexico, we had California, Montana, a little bit of everything.
Fantastic. Oh, we got them from all over.
We do.
People love golf no matter where they live. They love golf. So we appreciate everybody coming in from all over and firing out. So we're going to do, before we move into some more slides here, because we got a ton more great stuff, I want to do kind of a quick speed round and get some more questions. Keep these questions coming because we want to answer them. So all right, here we go. Coach, you can jump into this one first. What is an easy way to start lowering my par 3 scoring average?
Well, I think this is a perfect example. Start applying hitting the fat side of the green. I think if you start to pay more attention to your aiming, Coach, I think that's going to, first off, you're going to be more consistent. Are you going to make more birdies? I think eventually you may be just more consistent with your overall score. So instead of making, 5 birdies and then 5 double bogeys, you're going to make more pars. So I think just being aware and start kind of thinking about this. Think of your par 3 at your local course. Think of a hole, start doing this process of splitting it. What's the fat side, what's the skinny side, and then what's your aiming strategy within that?
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say to aim for the middle of the green.
Yeah, that's usually going to get it done.
Get it in the middle of the green. That's typically where it's going to be. All right, next one up here, and then we'll throw up a couple more questions, guys, so we have them from. Put them where they're from or what their names are too, so we kind of know who is going. All right, should my strategy change if the par 3 is 150 versus 200 yards? What do you think?
Yeah, great question. Based off your skill level, I think that's important. Sometimes there's factors you're considering for that day.
Yeah.
One, if the distance. So if you have a scoring club in your hand, which I consider anything from a pitching wedge to an 8-iron, you may go at the pin. Don't overcomplicate it. Go right at it if you're feeling it. Okay, but if you're about 200 yards away, for me that's going to be a 5-iron. I'm literally trying to hit the center of the green. If I'm on the green 40 feet away, that's a win for me. So what would you say, Todd?
I would just kind of continue what I said earlier in terms of aiming literally more for the middle. We saw the one stat that if you're making a 3 on a par 3 hole, you're probably over the period of time picking up a lot of shots on your competition. I'm going to go a little bit different direction with my input on this answer because I think this would really be helpful. When you go to the driving range and you practice, okay, obviously we would typically tell people to have a target, like aim at this particular pin or, something like that. And so what happens, I have found too with students, is that they're constantly aiming at a pin on the driving range, and then they go out to the golf course, and now they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to aim at the pin, I'm also supposed to aim for the fat side of the green. And psychologically, that's a very difficult change for them because you're constantly seeing the pin, right?
Yes.
So as a practice habit to help you with your par 3s and your overall course strategy, when you go to the driving range, every once in a while, implement this strategy.
Yeah.
Say, all right, there's the pin on the driving range. I'm going to see if I can hit it to the left of the pin and try to implement some of that in your practice, and that might help you also in your other ones. All right, one other quick one, then we're going to move on to the next slide. Keep the questions coming. We're going to answer those as quickly as we can. All right, easiest way to learn how to play the percentages to the fat side of the green, from Matt.
It's a great question from Matt. I would say, like Todd, just piggyback what Todd said, you've got to actually put some practice and some training into it, Todd.
Yeah.
So, and at the same time, if you have the ability, just try doing both strategies just for fun. Maybe you're going to play, maybe you're on the golf course with nobody else. You can actually play a ball where you're going to be very aggressive. The other golf ball, you're maybe more conservative. And just over time, really seeing, golf is all about being consistent for the most part. Anybody can play with their best game, Todd, but what does it look like when you don't have your best game?
Yeah, I would go a little bit off what we talked about on the other night with Andy. In terms of, first of all, you got to be, the easiest way to learn is first you got to be aware of it.
Yes.
So hopefully the stuff that we're sharing here today gets you thinking. That's the whole idea behind these things, is we're not going to master the core strategy in 1 hour, but it's to get you thinking a little bit. So when you head to the golf course, like, I never thought about the fat side of the green, or I never really realized if I got above the cup, these types of things. So I think number 1, the best way is to be aware of it. Number 2, start tracking it a little bit, maybe even on your scorecard, like, geez, I noticed I missed a lot of shots short-sided or whatever, and then you can start to build your strategy around it. So, all right, hey, keep those questions coming. We'll get those ones off the board there. We'll fire up some new ones. And in the meantime, Justin, let's go ahead and slip to the next slide. I think Sam's got some stuff to, next one here. All
Yep,
right.
so we're going to continue on here, Justin. If you could send it over to our second strategy, which is going to be understanding your dispersion pattern. And that is with your tee shot strategy. So we've kind of talked, Todd, about approach shots and par 3s. A big part of golf is honestly getting off the tee box. And this is going to be kind of, I think, a mind-blowing thing to you. It's going to be very common sense. But again, these are things that you can apply tomorrow and you're going to get better. So as we can see here, again, there's some lines that are going off of his target line here. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to kind of talk about what a dispersion pattern is. So most people here in South Dakota, Todd, they hunt. They know what a shotgun shell is. So a shotgun shell has BBs in it. So when you shoot a shotgun shell and it releases from a shotgun, BBs disperse. So there'll be BBs that are going to be going left of your target line. There's going to be some that are going right. But in some pattern, you're going to have BBs going left and right. Same thing with a golfer. Whether it's putting, it can be your 7-iron or driver, you're going to have a dispersion pattern. So a more skilled golfer may have a more condensed pattern. A golfer that may be just beginning is going to have a very wide. So some might slice the ball. They might have more BBs or golf balls on their right side of their dispersion pattern, maybe more than their left side. So just to kind of have a visual and an understanding of what we're talking with dispersion pattern.
Okay, so we're talking about dispersion pattern. You guys are probably gonna have some great questions on here, dispersion pattern, because this is really good stuff here. So we're not talking necessarily about the shape of the shot, are we? Are we talking about somebody who draws it versus fades it, or how does that? Because I know some of our viewers might be thinking, is he talking about a straight shot, or What if my ball curves? What does
Great
that
question. So we're just talking about the outcome of the shot. So obviously a golf ball can go any direction, but where it's actually landing,
Okay.
and that's determining what your dispersion. So if I played golf, let's just say 2 different shots, I could, as a right-handed golfer, hook it. I could hook it 20 yards off the left side of my target line, or I could hit a big fade or a slice, and that could be 50 yards right. So all of a sudden, my pattern here, basically it's just showing that I could have up to 28 yards of dispersion based off of this example. So that's just kind of giving you an idea. I can hit it this far right or this far left, and just having an understanding of that is going to start to help you understand how to shift your dispersion pattern.
Okay, so it's not so much if it's drawn, it's basically where it lands or it finishes. So correct me if
Yes.
I'm wrong, and hopefully this kind of helps you out a little bit, because I know this can get a little bit confusing. So basically what Coach is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if I'm hitting here and maybe I'm a fader, okay, my balls might work this way, but they all stop within this spot. Or I might be hitting here and I might be drawing it,
Yes.
but they're all in that spot. So when Sam is talking about dispersion there, he's talking about the end result. Now how the ball travels to get there could be completely different based on the player.
Exactly. Yep.
And
Yeah,
the
great
tighter
point.
the pattern, generally the higher skilled player, the tighter the pattern.
Yes, thanks for clarifying that. So kind of some new concepts here that we're bringing on. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to talk again about some of these expectations. So right now, so FIR, that stands for Fairways and Regulation, which relates to accuracy of your tee shot. The average tour for PGA is 59.8%. A great example that I heard from actually somebody that I went to a seminar from said, Jason Day, who has been a phenomenal driver of the golf ball, when he was at his best, I think 4 or 5 years ago, he's #1 in the world top. His dispersion pattern, being the best in the world, was 80 yards wide, which was kind of mind-blowing to me.
That is wider than I would have anticipated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think knowing that your driver is just naturally going to have a wider pattern, why do you think that is? What would be some of the reasons?
Well, I mean, obviously where my head's going is because it's traveling a further distance, and so if I'm off, it's going to be off more at that particular angle because of the distance.
Yes.
It's traveling.
Yeah.
How'd I do?
You did good. You answered it.
All right, good.
You got the most speed with that golf club, which means the ball can travel farther, and you're going to have, a potential to have a wider dispersion pattern. So if we go to the next slide here, this is a great visual to show. So these are 2 different examples. One's Rory McIlroy pattern, and then there's Webb Simpson. So Webb Simpson, if you don't know, he's a great golfer on tour. He won the Waste Management. Everybody probably knows who Rory McIlroy is.
Yep.
Great driver of the golf ball. This example is showing both of them. So Rory's carry in the example is 303.3, and Webb's is 27.3. So that's basically 30 yards of difference in carry. So as you can see, Rory's golf ball here, if Todd, you could point at
Yeah,
it,
you bet.
Rory has the potential, although he drives it farther, he's bringing in the bunker and even the left side of the cart path there, just based off of hitting the ball farther. So you look back at Webb, 270. Now you can think of this as a driver or a 3-wood, whatever strategy. Look how much more space that Webb actually has to hit the fairway. And you can see by the percentages here, Rory's dispersion covered 53% of the fairway, while Webb, 30 yards behind, had more of an opportunity with 59%. So, this is a great question to ask, because everybody right now is saying, hey, bomb the drive down there, get it as far as you can. Todd, what do you think the importance of hitting the fairway is? Is there more value to that than maybe to hitting it as far as you can down the fairway right now?
You know my hot topics. Coach knows my hot topics. So here's kind of my take on that, because we're bombarded with things about distance. And don't get me wrong, if you can drive at 320 and in the middle of the fairway versus somebody who drives at 250 in the fairway, that is an advantage.
Yes.
I mean, nobody is debating that at all. I think what tends to get forgotten, however, is that because we're so bombarded with distance these days, is that I don't see many people making bogeys and double bogeys because they can't get to par 4s and 2.
Yeah.
Or they can't get to par 5s and 3. They're making bogeys and double bogeys because they're in the darn trees all day long, and they're in the hazards and things like that. So for me, especially for a lot of players that I work with, youth and developing players, okay, I think that getting the ball in play is number one. Now, also I need to preface that a little bit, that when they are young, you do want to teach them speed. I mean, it's something we believe strongly in here at the Sanford Power Golf Academy, is we got to teach them speed early. And so it's not, but I think the thing is, it's not one or the other. And at times I feel like we've shifted too far to the fact that distance is the king of everything, when really getting the ball in play, hitting the fast side of the green, having a great short game. I mean, unless you're planning on playing the game and making a living doing it, you can play some really, really good golf and make a lot of progress and have some success. So that's my long
That's a great answer.
to the fact of, I think distance is important, but I think to a certain degree in society today, it's overrated. Get the darn ball in play.
We had a great question on here. Someone asked, does it depend what golf course you play? Could that maybe dictate whether, maybe, again, you're still trying to hit the fairway, but maybe it's more wide open. We have a couple of golf courses in Sioux Falls that, are more prairie, or they don't have as many trees. Would maybe your strategy allow you to do that?
Yeah, that's a good point. And keep those questions coming, because the guys are writing up here on the board as they're coming in. So keep them firing in, and we're going to continue to answer those. So I think that, yes, I think the types of course you grow up on have a huge part of it. I mean, if you grow up on a course that's wide open, you're probably going to turn into a golfer who just gets up and, tries to bomb it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're playing a course that's super tight, your kind of game is going to develop that way. So of course, certain types of setups and courses are going to be more advantageous to certain types of other golfers. And that's the beauty about golf, is every course and every situation is different. And that's why the person who wins the US Open might not be the person who wins the British Open or, the Masters and those types of things. So there's different horses for courses per se, and it doesn't matter if you're a touring professional or an amateur.
Good answer. I like that one. All right, let's go to the next slide. We're going to continue here. So, again, I'd love to hear if someone knew what hole this one. This one's a little tougher. I'll give you a hint. It is at Augusta National. I've been fortunate a couple times. It's supposed to go this year. It wasn't going to happen. Hopefully, we'll still have the Masters here in the fall. So this specific hole, we have Tiger Woods hitting. So just again for the illustration, it's going to help us understand. I don't know actually where Tiger's aiming on this.
Yeah,
I'm just assuming.
Yeah,
So,
we're just assuming,
but I do know when Tiger was playing really well last year, he was hitting kind of a fade. He's kind of hitting a squeeze fade, and that was kind of his ball flight when he was winning. So for this example, again, just numbers that we were putting up. In this situation, Tiger, let's say he's aiming right here where this dotted line is.
So that's kind of the mid, you're talking, is this his dispersion?
Yes, the
pattern
orange
course?
line
Okay.
is this V is his dispersion pattern.
Okay.
This is where he's trying to get the ball to end up and his target line. So in this situation, Tiger's aiming pretty much in the middle of the fairway, right, on this specific hole. Well, with these best players, they have the time to actually put into place and know their numbers and their dispersion patterns, Todd.
Okay.
So I think that's one thing that's different from a lot of amateurs out there. Do you have time to map out on your yardage books what your actual dispersion pattern is? No, but you can have a general idea for most golf courses really what you're going to do with your dispersion pattern. So in this situation, Tiger, I guarantee you, he knows exactly what tree he's aiming at in the back. He knows this. So in this situation, his dispersion pattern, if he drew it out on his yardage book, look at the left side. Obviously perfect. It's got part of the fairway. But where does the right side show? What is in that part of his dispersion pattern, Todd?
Yeah, bunker.
A bunker,
And
right?
And the trees.
And the trees. Okay, so in this situation, there's trouble on both sides. But what's worse right now for this hole, I'm assuming, is being in this bunker. Okay, so if we go to the next slide here, let's just assume it's the same action shot, still shot. Tiger actually aims roughly about 5 yards more to the left, and all of a sudden his dispersion pattern changes. What do you notice, Todd? What does that right-sided dispersion pattern do?
Great point. So this right side, so the dispersion pattern stayed the same because it's the same player, but this dispersion pattern now is inside that bunker line, and even the one on the left is still maybe the first cut of rough over here, but the whole pattern, dispersion pattern, is well within the range of between the bunker and the trees on the left.
Exactly. So great question that got brought up here that one of our interns brought up is, well, what if right now the left side looks like it's going into the trees or into the pine straw? That's common there at Augusta. So, in this situation, Todd, the number we always look at is fairways of regulation, that percentage. Is there certain times where we should maybe be focusing on something else? Just because we didn't hit the fairway, does that mean we didn't execute our tee shot strategy?
Yeah, so one of the stats that we keep track of here, especially some of the professionals, is what we call good enough, drives that are good enough. And I would write that down because that's a really good stat for you to keep track of. We always, you can keep track of fairways, all right, but there are certain times where a drive is good enough, meaning it's in a position where it's good enough to get the ball to the green if it's a par 4 or advance it if it's a par 5. Because as Coach is saying there are certain situations where, maybe in the first cut of the rough is in your dispersion pattern, and that's a way better spot than being in the bunker. And this illustration that Coach Sam is giving here just is perfect example of how that relates. Would you rather be in that bunker or behind those trees, or in the first cut of the rough? And so if you're in the first cut of the rough on the left-hand side, that is good enough to get the ball to where you want to go.
And this is all contingent on, obviously you could hit it in the trees, but you need to also have this understanding that you should be strategizing for that. So if this is a 3-wood from Tiger, maybe driver's not an option because his dispersion as far as distance is actually into those trees. So I've been fortunate. This hole, does anybody know what it is? It's number 1 at Augusta, okay? A lot of guys bail out left, Todd, on this hole.
Yeah.
I've been down there. I've actually been able to see it. So a perfect example, it's a good enough fairway because the angle into the hole on the left side, even if they're in the rough, maybe even a little in the pine shot, at least they have a good angle. If they're in these bunkers on the right or right of the bunkers, they're in jail for this specific hole.
Yeah, and this is where, going back to the initial theme, and we're going to get into some our quick answers here on some of these questions. We're going to dive into that again, do a quick round here. Is that great players, when they miss it in the right place. And this is really the whole premise of what we're talking about when we talk about course strategy. You are going to hit bad shots. Coach is not saying get your pattern completely straight. What he's saying is this is your pattern. You got to learn to navigate that pattern so that when you do miss a shot, or a shot, quite honestly, that's in your normal pattern. It's in your normal shots, right? That it's not out of bounds. It's not in the water. Maybe it's in the first cut of rough, or maybe it's even in the bunker or whatever. And I think that is a huge part of why some players, are great and some are not.
So we're not saying Tiger has the shot. You're going to hit that well, and maybe most of his shots do end up in this area, but he is capable and vulnerable to hit that wide shot. You have to plan that you may have that shot. It may happen 1 out of 10 drives, but it's a potential, pattern. And if you shift your pattern and you pay attention to how to aim within your pattern, as simply as moving 5 yards left, so you eliminate that side of the fairway, I guarantee you're going to hit more fairways or good enough fairways, like Todd said, and you're going to be off and running, playing better.
All right, let's get into some speed round here, because we got a lot of questions are being fired out here, so keep them coming. We're going to hit a speed round. We're going to do 3 of them right now. I'm going to have Sam take this first one because it's a tough one. What if there's trouble on both sides of the fairway?
Great question.
I want to hear your answer before I give mine.
So, the first thing I would ask is trouble. What is trouble? So, people tend to be fearful of both things, but what's worse is what I would ask Todd. So, what's worse? A penalty or being in the bunker? Now, some of you might think being in the bunker is prison, okay?
Yeah.
So I've been there before too, and depending on that, it could be. But what's worse is the penalty stroke area is worse than the bunker. So if, say, there's water coming up the right side of this one, or on the left side and the bunker's on the right, yeah, then I would probably rather miss on the right because I'm not losing a stroke with that penalty area.
I'm going to second what Coach said there. I think the first question is, what's the lesser of 2 evils?
Yes.
Okay, that's where I would go. Because, at the end of the day, even great course strategy or management, whatever word you want to use, is not going to eliminate the fact that at some point you just got to hit a golf shot.
Exactly.
You want to be a great player, at some point you got to step up and you got to be able to hit a great golf shot. And so what we're trying to do is help you understand, let's try to rationalize and make good decisions so that it's not as difficult as it could be. So I would say, what's the lesser of 2 evils per se? And then the second thing is there an option to maybe hit something that's either short of both of those obstacles or something that's beyond? I mean, there are times where, maybe the play is to take out a driver, bomb it over both the water hazards so that if you do miss a fairway, it's in the rough. I mean, So we're not saying course strategy is always about hitting irons off the tee.
Correct.
It's about making the right decision. All right, so we're going to do 2 more quick ones here.
I got one actually that just popped in before we could write it down. I'll let you get to these 2. How can I keep from blowing up holes near the end of a round?
Ooh.
That's a good question. I would come back, because we asked a lot of questions back, so we don't want to assume, but, do you find yourself finding similar patterns as far as what you're doing with this, like your tee shot strategy? Are you always committed to just one golf club? Are you considering, is that all you think about, or are you considering maybe some different strategies? I think that's the big thing, and once you have a pattern with something, you have to think why you're doing it. That's the first, having awareness. You brought that up earlier, Todd. So actually, you're doing the first thing right. You're having awareness of it. Now you need to write down some stats, consider, and then think about some of this strategy. Sometimes it's just pure execution. Sometimes you can't do it, whether you have nerves, you're playing for something. But a lot of times it comes down to maybe strategy as well. Maybe your strategy isn't well, you're not using the right club, or you don't have a real accurate understanding of your dispersion.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and we talked a little bit about this the other night when we were visiting with Andy from the Sanford Science Sports Institute. And if you haven't watched that, I would encourage you to go back and watch that. If you're asking this question, or this is kind of in your head, you're wondering the same thing, cover some really good stuff on there. And I think the first thing to me is you got to have awareness.
Yeah.
You got to have awareness of the situation. What's causing you to do that? Is it where your mindset is going? Is it because there's certain types of holes that don't fit your eye? And start having some self-reflection on what's the environment that's taking place that's causing me to do that. And once you're aware of that, then you can start developing a plan to navigate those things. Because the truth of the matter is those things are not going to change. You're going to be nervous with 3 holes to go or whatever it is if you have a great round going. But do you have some awareness and do you have a plan in place to help you do that? And so I think whether it be us, the coaches here at the Sanford Power Golf Academy or at US Golf TV, we can help you do that, or there's a lot of qualified coaches out there around the world that can help you out with that too as well. So this is also a good time for me to kind of throw it out there. Be sure you're following us.
Yes.
Like on the Sanford Power Golf Academy Instagram page and in our Twitter feed and at US Golf TV and on our website at US Golf TV, because we're covering a lot of these things that you're asking on a regular basis. All right, a couple more quick questions, then we got some more information I know Sam wants to get to. This is a really good one, Sam. What outside factors should I consider when choosing where to aim off the tee?
Oh, this is a good one.
Because not every day's like it is here where it's perfect, right?
Well, a lot of things to consider. The fact that you're actually thinking that way is good. So
Yeah.
first off, how are you hitting it that day, right, Todd? I mean,
Yeah.
we're not saying to say just don't have confidence, but if you have your C game as far as your contact, that might dictate a little bit of your strategy. So sometimes we just don't have it, and we do have to be a little bit more conservative because we don't have our best stuff. So I think that would be one. Number two, other factors would be what's the wind doing? Okay, and we're going to get into some of these. Hopefully that spurs some questions. We're going to talk about wind, elevation gain, loss, temperature. But these are some of the things that you're analyzing, and a lot of players are doing it very quick, but they're doing it in their pre-shot routine. So I'd say first, how well are you hitting it? Okay, what about the wind, the elevation? And then last thing, I think also determining how far away you are. So if you're really close with the scoring club, that might dictate your strategy. If you have a 3-wood or a hybrid on a par 3, you're trying to hit the center of the green, you're trying to make a par, you might have to get up and down.
Yeah, I would, Sam hit all the main ones there, the wind, the conditions, those types of things. The only thing I would add to that is just, the situation and what does the hole look like to your eye. There's certain holes that you stand up there and you're like, man, this just looks super easy. And then there's other holes that you're like, I just for some reason cannot visualize the shot here. So I think there's a lot of variables there. I know some of this wind stuff we're going to talk about a little bit real quickly. All right, so let's dive into the next one. What do we got for the next slide here?
So we go to the next slide. So
keep those questions coming too, guys. We can go ahead and get those erased off and keep the other ones coming up.
The third one we're going to talk about is elevation gain or loss. So that would also be something called slope. Not every golf course is flat. We do play on a lot of courses here that are, but most golf courses have a little slope, especially the one we've been talking about, Augusta National. Pretty hard to see it on TV, but there's so much slope at that. And again, these are things that as you get better at golf, these are things you're taking into account, Todd. You're analyzing, you're constantly, what am I thinking about and how is this affecting my yardage? And once you have that and you feel confident, then you're picking the right club, you're going through, you're visualizing, but this is a crucial step. So this specific one, anybody know what hole this is? Okay, this is an iconic hole. This is actually one of my buddies who got to play it last year. And so this specific hole from this tee box is about 110 yards. Okay, so we can kind of see, it's hard to see the pin here, but the pin is below his eye line. So we know just by common sense slope, this hole is below his feet, right? So part of what good golfers do, or any golfers that have a strategy, they have to determine how far that ball is, or actually that hole is below. And in this situation, it's about 10 yards, he told me. It played about 95 yards. So a lot of things we have measuring devices these times of year, or this time and age. We have things that tell us. But how did you do it in the old day, Todd? How did you know? I don't want to make you sound old. I know we didn't always have these,
What is
Bush
the
now.
rangefinder? What is that?
Well,
You know, step it off.
Use it for hunting, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, oddly enough, you bring up, rangefinders, there's a lot of really good ones out there. Tell you elevation.
Yeah.
Things like that, even stuff that talk about the humidity and really some valuable information. I think a lot of it was just honestly by feel. And there was always kind of this general thing that I remember as a kid playing golf was, if it's uphill, add one club. If it's downhill, it's one, less club. Those types of things. And I mean, for the most part, they got you pretty close. I think what was most important is that because we didn't necessarily have those devices, is we were forced to think a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Versus just getting up there and grabbing some form of a machine and shooting something and then having that information given to us. We had to think oh, is it uphill? And do some common sense calculating there and kind of figure it out. So a little bit of old school there for you.
I think a thing that I think it relates to is like a GPS or Google Maps on your phone when you drive. Sometimes you're looking down at your phone and you're following the directions and your end location is just off to the side. So sometimes we rely, although it's good technology, sometimes it takes away from our actual feel. And so something like this, yeah, everybody's using a rangefinder, but you should actually just have some pretty common feel and knowledge about, hey, this feels, about 10 yards down, just based off of where my eye line is relative to that tee. And then you just adjust with your yardages. So 3 feet for every yard. So again, if you think you're about, in this situation, he's about 30 feet above the tee box, that's going to average out to 10 yards. So 3 feet in a yard, for all those mathematicians out there, that's the basic calculation that you're doing. And that's another way. Some people like to think that way. So you like, the Bryson DeChambeaus of the world, they do it that way. They're calculating in their head.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to throw a curveball to you here. Keep
Okay.
the questions coming. Because we got plenty of time yet. We're going to answer some more in a speed round here in just a second. So keep firing them up there, guys, on the board. On this particular shot, okay, that's the audience. Hopefully you're watching here. So pin is right here, right? Where's the fat side of the green? Where would be the fat side of the green? And if you were on this tee box right now, and I like the fact that you picked some really good holes for this course stuff here. I need to follow you around. You and your buddies got some great spots.
I know. I wasn't invited.
The pin's there. Where's the fat side of the green on this one?
First off, number 7 at Pebble Beach, iconic. Who was the person that putted off it, Todd? Was it Sam Snead? I think at one time it was so much downwind they actually putted. So this pin to me looks like it's kind of in the back. So 2 things. First thing I'm going to look at is what side, left or right, is it? To me it looks a little bit more right center, not way right. But to me the left side is going to be the fat side. And then also it seems like it's in the back a little bit.
Yes.
So to me, I would also say the fat side would be the front edge of the green.
Agree.
So this would be for a more skilled golfer. If you're just, maybe a middle handicap, it'd be middle of the green. If you're a real good golfer, I'm trying to go in the front part of the green in the left center. So that'd be very specific, but that kind of quadrant of the green is where my strategy and my aiming and where I wanted to end up is what I would do.
Perfect. I didn't want to get us off track there, but that was right there in front of us, and I thought, this is a perfect example of a ball that misses, I'll just use a number here, 20 yards right of the pin is in the ocean, and one that misses 20 yards left of the pin is a 2-putt par.
Great
One's
point.
a 5, one's a 3. So this is a classic example of what Coach Sam has been teaching us here about the fat side of the green. All right, what do we got? We're going to go to the next slide, or we want to get into some
Yeah, one more. We're just going to split the slide here. Next one, if we go here, Justin. So this is another hole, okay, that is at Augusta, if you know what hole this is. Again, a lot of severe uphill. So again, the example here is the same thing. We have all shots that we're going to be hitting uphill. So a lot of the same strategy applies. We got to consider how much above our eye line that pin is. And that's going to really dictate our strategy. So I see this a lot from amateur golfers. We tend to underestimate how much uphill we are. I rarely see us actually getting to the pin on uphill shots. What would you say, Todd?
I find that uphill shots is just something that based on where we're from, we don't get a lot of these. And so this is one of the things in terms of your development as a player. We encourage this a lot for all of our players. You got to get out and expose yourself to a variety of different climates, elevations, grass types, and elevation is one of them. If you're in a situation where the course you play is super flat, okay, you got to get out when you're traveling and doing stuff, play courses that have elevation change. And so when you're hitting the ball uphill, something like this, obviously it's uphill, so typically people come up short.
Yes.
You know, because they get a yardage, it's 150, so they grab their 150-yard club, 8-iron or whatever, and they come up short. And so typically, obviously uphill, you want to grab a little bit more club, but also make sure that you're trying to expose yourself to those environments so you can kind of learn to navigate them.
And I think one reason why a lot of people, assuming that downhill feels more comfortable than uphill, you can't see the green. There's something with being comfortable and feel and visualizing. If you can actually see the green or your target, you have more comfortability. In this situation, it doesn't seem like it, but if you can't actually see the surface of the green, your eyes can't determine the depth of the green.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, do we got any other slides, or we want to get into some
Yeah, let's get into the speed round here.
Speed round. Okay, all right, here we go. I got a couple here. We'll fire out. Keep these questions coming. We got a few minutes left. We're going to answer as many as we can. We appreciate you. Hope you're having some fun, learning some things. I know I am. Plus, it's pretty cool to see these great golf holes.
Yeah.
It's putting me in the mood for golf.
Making me jealous. I want to get out there.
I want to get out and hit some. All right, best process to get yardages without a rangefinder.
This is a good one. So on a lot of golf courses, at least that I've played on municipal golf courses, there's still maybe a yardage on like sprinklers.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing. And like Todd mentioned, if you don't have that, sometimes we don't have the opportunity to walk off. You know, some of the pros will even do that. They'll have everything and they'll walk off. Well, it's not realistic to do that from 150 yards. But at the end of the day, if you know your yardages pretty well and you're going for the center of the green instead of the pin, I think that strategy alone is going to help you. You're just more aware of your factors. And I do think you actually probably play better golf. Try playing without a rangefinder once. See what it's like.
Yeah, I would say that there's something to be said for finding a sprinkler head that's marked, or one of the, you know, almost all golf courses have some form of marking system. I mean, I don't know if there's any that are even around anymore that don't.
Yeah.
But, you know, finding that, learning to walk it off forward or back and doing the math in your head. And I mean, that's how you learn to, you know, get yourself around a golf course. And then also the beauty of it is, that I find is that if you do it that way, all of those yardages, generally speaking, are to the middle of the green. So when you do your calculation, the first number in your head is the middle of the green number. Okay. And that just sets the tone for where you want the ball. It goes right back into the first thing that Coach Sam said here about getting the ball to the fast side of the green. And so it's a great way to do that. So walking it off, I think not only has its advantages for learning to play the game, but it gets the right yardage, the middle yardage in your head right away. So really good question there. All right, so let's talk about, we've got a couple other quick ones here. How do I practice real golf shots on the driving range? So I think what we're saying there is like, how do I take some of these things that I'm learning here today and actually practice them on the driving range?
Good point. I think first off, I mean, we don't all have things that we can put out in the driving range, but a lot of times there's things in the background, Todd, trees, holes from nets. Create your own fairways. Create kind of those boundaries that you actually have on, you know, in your actual rounds. And that's going to help you kind of create a train really hard so play is easier type of situation. So with a driver, my recommendation is instead of being so random with every shot, pick, you know, pole to pole or tree to tree, hit 10 shots, do a performance game, see how many out of 10 you're going to hit. And as far as hitting the fat side of the green, the same thing. Pick something in the target, something that you can go at, split the green with your imagination. If you do have something in front of you, you can put some alignment sticks or cones, and just do some intermediate targets. That would be probably one thing that you could do in this situation.
All right, that's perfect. I'm going to keep moving on these questions. We got a lot of them. Keep firing them in. And then also, we're going to talk here at the end about the stuff we're going to do next week. So make sure we get that stuff up there on the board, guys, so we know what we're going to be talking about next week. We can even put it in some of the chat stuff there so people know. So let's dive in next. How about, somebody asked, I'll answer this one. How about, what's the difference between playing golf in Colorado versus Florida? So playing at elevation versus sea level, huge difference. Huge difference. Obviously, Colorado, the ball's going to travel much further than if you're in Florida or you're at sea level, those types of things. But that has a big impact on it. Now, I'm sure there's some calculation out there that could tell you exactly what it is, but you just have to be aware of it. That's something that when you go to a new golf course and you're going to play it, you should be aware of where's it located at and where's the elevation, because it could have a big impact on it. All right, next question, Sam, I'll give to you.
Okay.
How much does rough affect your plan? The ball sitting in the rough.
So if the ball's in the rough, the big difference between being in the fairway is when you hit a shot in the fairway, that face is actually contacting the ball with nothing or minimal things in the way. So if we're in the rough, what tends to happen, Todd, is there's some grass that is in the way. So when that ball actually comes off, in the fairway, it has some spin. It's coming off the grooves. When you're in the rough, there's nothing on that ball, and it's going to come out like a knuckleball. It's going to have no spin. So that ball is not going to probably hold on the green. So you have to account for that with this strategy. So again, a more advanced way to look at some of the strategy for a better player, you have multiple variables you're looking at. What type of rough, or if you're in the fairway, is also going to dictate how far that ball goes, or it may have a potential to be a wider dispersion pattern.
Yeah, we call those flyers sometimes.
All flyers, yeah.
Yeah, especially, and do you think it's different if the rough is wet versus dry?
Yes, that's a big factor. Same thing, if you get water or moisture in between your face and the ball, that dictates how much spin is on the ball. You know, whether too much or none at all, that's the same thing. It's going to dictate how far the ball goes.
Yeah, really good stuff there, because if the ball's in the rough, it could jump pretty high, especially if it's kind of that rough that's kind of thin. You know, now if it's U.S. Open stuff and it's thick, that's a little bit of a different ball game. But what Coach Sam said there is perfectly is it's very difficult to spin the ball. What causes spin on the ball, I gotta get off topic, here's probably a whole other video, but what creates spin on the ball, we get that question a lot, I want to spin my wedges, right, is clean contact, in essence friction, clean contact between the ball and the grooves on the face. And when the ball's in the rough, there gets to be grass between the ball and the grooves, and then therefore the ball does not spin as much. So sometimes you'll hear guys, oh, he caught a flyer, or she caught a flyer, and the ball will aim over the green, because there's no spin on it, like Coach Sam said, it kind of knuckleballs out of there.
What's the key there? Make sure that you got a towel you're wiping off your face.
Yes.
So every shot, if you got clean grooves, you got a good golf ball, make sure you clean it off, you're going to have more spin, be closer to the hole.
All right, one more question, and then we're going to do a little recap, and we're going to talk about what we're going to do next week. We got some great stuff coming back for you for next week. All right, how does temperature affect distance? What do you think on that? I've heard different things here, like, it doesn't really have any difference. It does. What has been your experience on that?
So, kind of heard some different things, some calculations, some actual statistics and data behind this, but think about an average day, if it's in the summer, maybe you're in San Diego, that's where I want to be right now. So 70, 75 degrees, think about that. If we drop down and we're playing golf here in the spring, let's say it's 30 degrees, we've dropped 40, for every 10 degrees of difference, they're saying that it's 2 to 3 yards.
Okay.
So if you drop down again from 70 to 30, that's 40, you do that times 3, we're anywhere from 12 to 15 yards just because we dropped temperature 40 degrees. And I think some of us know that, but we underutilize that in our strategy or don't really put it into place. Plus, when you're in colder weather, what are you doing? You're probably wearing more layers. That's probably going to impact, you're restricting you a little bit with your golf swing, which is going to slower your club head speed, your ball speed. You're probably not going to hit it as far.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to say. I think the temperature is one thing in terms of the ball, obviously, but also just innately, if you've got a coat on and a sweater on, you're not going to move as quickly as you do if it's a nice summer day and you got your shorts on and a short sleeve. So, all right, I'm going to do a quick recap here of what it is that I'm taking away from today. I want Sam to do the same, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do next week. We've got some great stuff coming next week. And if you haven't already, hey, thanks for sticking around. Be sure to subscribe to our channel here at US Golf TV. Be sure to follow us at Sanford Power Golf Academy on our Twitter feed and our Instagram feed. Also, we got a lot of great content that Sam is doing and myself and the whole team is doing over at usgolftv.com. Great information. We're here to help you out. This is a time when a lot of people are stuck at home, but we want to talk about golf, and we appreciate you coming in. And be sure to, hopefully follow us, because I think we're helping a lot of people play better golf. So my big takeaways from today, and then I want to get your thoughts, Sam, are I just want you to be thinking about your strategy.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting you to have all the answers. I'm not expecting you to remember everything we said. But when you go over to the tee box the next time you get out and play golf, which is hopefully pretty soon, and you put that peg in the ground, just have some awareness of what decisions you're making, where's the ball going, what's the curve of your shots, and just reflect on it at the end of the day. And what's going to happen really quickly after 3-4 times out, you're going to naturally see your game start to improve, your scores drop, maybe not because you're even hitting better shots, but you're learning to manage your game.
At the end of the day, these strategies, you can apply them anybody, whether you're a tour player, you're a 5 handicap, you're a 20 handicap. What I want to get across, you do these strategies, it's not all about execution of your skill. If you have the right strategy, you're going to be able to shoot lower scores. You're going to be able to hit more greens, make more pars on those approach shots. Aiming and being disciplined on your dispersion pattern, just having a little awareness. You don't need to know exactly what this is like we showed for Tiger. If you do those things, also have some awareness with your elevation gain, temperature, how these things all affect, come up with the best game plan you can have, and then just go be athletic over the ball and hit and visualize. So something that can help you tomorrow, you don't have to develop this skill over 12 months. these things can help you play better tomorrow, Todd.
Yeah, good decision making. Really good information there, Coach. I really appreciate you sharing that stuff with our team. Hopefully you're learning some stuff. All right, hey, next week we're not done. Next week we're going to be back Monday and Wednesday. Monday at 5 p.m. Central Time, Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Time. We got the whole brains behind this one.
We do.
We got everybody, all these guys behind the camera right now. They're putting together all these great ideas, and I want to say, hey, we appreciate their help, Nick and our interns, Josh and Justin, and all our staff at home, Tyler and Matt, and everybody who's there helping us out. This is a total team effort here at the Sanford Power Golf Academy and US Golf TV. So on Monday, we're talking about things that you can do at home to help your game. This is going to be really helpful right now because a lot of us are stuck at home. We're going to give you specific things that you can do at home that can help you start playing better golf. And on Wednesday, this is going to be a huge hit. We're doing our favorite drills. 25 years of coaching, I got a bunch of different drills. This guy is the master of drills and training aids.
Love drills.
He's got a lot of them, and we're going to share those with you. So, hey, stay safe. Golf will be coming. We're going to be ready to go, and we're here to help you out, and we will see you on Monday night at 5 p.m.